Hello and welcome, everyone. I am so delighted to be here and to have you with us. Like you, there's so many participants from different parts of the world, and whether you're here live right now or watching us later, thank you. Thank you for being with us for yet another session of the Spiritist Talk series promoted by the United States Spiritist Federation, which is held every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So it is my great pleasure to host today's talk, which is presented by Jussara Korngold, who will be speaking on a very special topic. Hi, Jussara. Bartimaeus and Zacchaeus, a journey through Jericho. But before Jussara gets the mic, let us all give her a very warm welcome. And before we begin, please allow me to briefly introduce her. Jussara Korngold is currently the General Secretary of the International Spiritist Council. She's also the former president and current vice president of the United States Spiritist Federation. She's also the founder and president of the Spiritist Group of New York and the Spiritist Alliance for Books. Jussara is fluent in Portuguese, English, French, and Spanish, and I could say, and many more. She's an international speaker, a published author, a translator, and shall I dare to say, a great friend. So, everyone, please feel free to send your questions at any time during our presentation using the chat window. Jussara has set time to at the end of her talk to address your comments and questions. Jussara, thank you for being here. The floor is yours.
Oh, first of all, let me say hi to everyone and say how happy I am and be able to participate in this talk. And this is very special for all of us at the United States and United States Spiritist Federation, all the work that we have been doing, and so many people that have been collaborating and making this work grow each day. So it's really with a lot of gratitude that we will start this topic today, that we have chosen for today. Sometimes I think it is good for us to revisit the life or the lives of those that brought or a great contribution to the world, and their roles as being great masters, prophets, the one Jesus, the saints, those great pillars of science, all of those that show us through their examples the endurance that is needed. And above all, they motivate us in their quests. When we look at them and we look at their stories, we get inspired. And I hope that this particular two ones that I brought to you, that I'm bringing to you today, is going to make an impact in your lives like they made in my life. So we'll be talking about Bartimaeus and Zacchaeus. Those are the two main figures we are going to be talking about today. But there will be some others, especially Jesus, because actually we are talking about the journey from Jesus coming from Galilee, Perea, until he arrives at Jericho. Then he goes to Bethany, and from Bethany he's very close to Jerusalem when we the great event that we will have in Jerusalem is actually what is called the Palm Sunday. So we are talking about the week before, um, basically the week before his crucifixion. It's like he's really taking advantage of time, taking advantage of situations, and maybe in his thinking, he was saying to himself, I have to leave steady, strong, faithful multipliers on top of bringing changes in them that would be impact society in a way that they could not deny that a special force was in place. So here we are on the, couple days before Jesus coming and to Jericho. In Jericho, the city per se, it was a very busy city, very well placed, and a place that basically was in the middle of everywhere. You could come and go to Jericho, one of the oldest cities in the world, and so it was a very prominent city, and very, how to say, busy in terms of business and etc. And this is not the first time we are going to be talking about Jericho. We have the famous passage from the parable of the Samaritan. A man was traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho, showing that he was going there to make business. But in Jericho, there was a man that lived there, and he used to place himself at the gates of the city, because like we said, it was like a fertile oasis in the desert, a crossroads of merchants and pilgrims, a place where we would be people that were very wealth and very misery as well. So there was every day Bartimaeus. He would go sit there at the door of the city, Jericho. He would have his bowl to see if through them that he could be able to receive help and assistance, and his cloak. That's all he had. The clothes that he wore, the cloak that he put on top of him, and this bowl. And when we are going to be studying who was this man, that if you allow me, from now on, I'm going to call him Bart, okay? Not all the time coming with this roll of a tongue to say Bartimaeus, okay? Let's call him Bart. Let us bring the character closer to us. So he was a very faithful man. He had faith. It is said that he used to pray every day. Every day he would be praying to God, and every day he would wake up with the hope that that would be the day that he will finally be able to see, because he was blind. He could not see anything, and he had been blind since childhood. And he would talk in God, he would listen to the scriptures, and he would be keeping this faith. And there he was, living in the city of Jericho, the same city where Zacchaeus also lived, which on the other side was, as we know, a publican. And now I'm going to call him Zach, okay? Forgive me the traditional ones, but I think it's going to be better for us to go with Bart and Zach. So Zach, he was not only a publican, but was the chief of publican in Jericho. What does this mean? Because we are familiar, we heard about Matthew being a publican and being after one of the 12 disciples and then the apostles, and how hard it was for them, for him to be, and for the others to forgive him, and for him to be respected and engaged. But here we are talking about something more. At that time, the Romans, because, although they were literally everywhere and dominating everywhere, they understood quite early that they have to have people working for them in the city. So what do the Romans used to do? They used to sell regions, for a person to develop, or to, in this case of Zach, he bought the rights of the city to deal with the tax that were due to the Romans. And they had this kind of agreement. Well, I expect, as a Roman, I expect to receive a certain amount from you, from this city, at the end of the month. How much you're going to gather is up to you. And of course, many of the chief publicans became extremely wealthy due to this practice, because they could charge as much as they could. They would not forget or forgive anyone that was that owed me money to the state. So it was a very, very hatred position. So here we have two men completely apart, but not so much, because Zach would constantly go through the door of Jericho and see Bart there with his bomb, and most of the time he would even contribute. Of course, Bart didn't know who he was, and maybe this is the reason why Zach was contributing, because in fact, Zach was so hated in the city that people refused to say their names, to pronounce their names. Or his name, actually, to pronounce his name. So he was the impure, the corrupt, the sinner, and a man completely hated. But let's look a little bit inside Zacchaeus. Circumstances and age, young age, took him to this position that he assumed as chief of publican in Jericho. At the beginning, he was, of course, very happy. He was earning money. He had a job, a very prominent job, powerful job. But little did he know how much he would have to pay for that. And that cost him everything, cost the joy of his life, because he did not have friends. Maybe he had some people that would like to, to be next to him, just because he was a powerful man, waiting or hoping to gather favor from him. But he could not even walk on the streets of Jericho without people turning their faces, pushing their children closely, not to, to cross path with him. So it was a very, very solitary life, and which he tried to fill with money, with the possibilities that his profession allowed to him. And all of that is written in the books from Amelia Rodriguez, that she talks about this page. We have it in English. It's the kingdom. I forgot the first name. If anyone remember, please put there for me the book from Amelia Rodriguez that was published by Liao. And so she is the one among other sources that talks both about Bart and Zach. And so he was very, very solitary, very solitary. Nothing could fill the void that now he felt inside of himself. And what was worse, being a Jewish man, he was refused from the Jewish community to attend any of the ceremonies. He could not go to the synagogue. And it was not very much like, maybe not with the same faith as Bart, but he had this faith. But he was at a point of shame. Like, we talk about the imposter syndrome, right? Like he felt like an imposter. And the book by Amelia Rodriguez is First Fruits of the Kingdom. And thank you, Marcia. And but that's what he felt, because everyone would look at him, and this is a horrible man, but at the same time, everybody envied his position. And he was empty. And every now and then he would dare, feeling like an imposter, to talk to God in silence and ask if he was still worth of assistance. So here we have one of them that is extremely pessimist, thinking there was nothing else that could be done to him to rescue him from that blindness of the soul. And here we have another one, Bart, that had this joy of living, that had this faith in God, but couldn't do much because of the blindness of his physical eyes. So this is the situation. Days before Jesus entered Jericho. But of course, while Jesus was in the way, there were already talks in the city about the Messiah. The Messiah is coming. He's performing miracles. He's healing the blind. He's healing the cripples. He's healing everyone. And he's not judging people. And he looks and talks to people. And he sits with the sinners. So can you imagine you being in one of this position, the one that needed so badly a physical healing, hearing about a Messiah that was so close to you, but you couldn't see it, and you couldn't precise the moment where he was going to arrive, because you're of your impairment. And here it is Zach thinking, there is a man that sits with the sinner. I am a sinner. Will he see me? I would love to see him, but he would be impaired to see him because the crowds would not allow him to get closer to Jesus because he was an undeserved person. And then they were in their expectations, in their doubts. Will he see me? Will he talk to me? Will he actually be able to change my life? And let us talk as ourselves, because this is the pre-moment where every one of us have to place ourselves when we are in need of assistance. Jesus said, help yourselves and heaven will help you. But first we have to show a movement that we are willing to be helped, to be assisted. Even if at that moment everybody will be telling us it is impossible. You've been blind since childhood. You've been a miser for so many decades, and the one that has caused so many people to hate you. But they were there in that expectation, only relying on the mercy of God. And the days were passing. And of course, Bartimaeus, because he was close to the door where Jesus would have to go through in order to get into the city of Jericho. One day, not so distant, when they were hearing that Jesus was coming and that probably he was going to take that way, he started hearing, the noisy of, people gathering, and then people saying, Jesus is coming into this way, Jesus is getting close to the city. And all of a sudden he was taken by such a gratitude and joy. Finally, the help that he was certain will come from God, that according to the writings, he never doubted he was going to receive. It was there, so close yet so distant, because how could he reach this man that was already surrounded by so many? And then Bartimaeus had an idea, and he cried as much as he could, Jesus of Nazareth, son of David, have mercy on me. Immediately, people that were around him started, shush, don't bother Jesus with your pleas, and Jesus will not come to you. But he completely ignored the push that are so often quite familiar to us as well, right? How many people come to us sometimes trying to invalidate our dreams, our hopes, saying, you're not going to achieve that. You're unable to do that. You're dreaming too high, or, who are you for a person that can come and help you to come and help you? So this is a very, very familiar emotion for all of us. I hope not too much, but it is. or at least that we witness others doing to other people. But he didn't give up. And then he cried even louder. He said, Jesus, son of David, have mercy of me. And here we have to stop, because it is quite interesting how he was crying out loud for Jesus to help him. He was saying the name of Jesus. And then when he said, Son of David, that was an affirmation that he knew the scripture, the prophecy, that the Messiah would come from the line of David. And he was attesting to Jesus, I do believe you are the Messiah. Without exchanging one word with Jesus, he was telling Jesus, I do believe. Because that was one of the things that Jesus, when he would heal people, he would come to us and say, do you have faith? This is the kind of faith we were talking about. The blind man, but carried this faith in God, in the mercy of God, and knew it was about time for the prophecy to be accomplished, and felt in his inner emotions that Jesus was the Messiah. So Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me. And the second time Jesus said that, the people were ready to jump on him. Jesus stopped. And everyone stopped and started being in silence. And Jesus said, bring me this man to me. And so the very ones that were close before saying, shush, don't bother the Jesus or this or that, were the ones that would say, come, he's calling for you. And then they place Bartimaeus in front of Jesus. And Jesus looks at him and asks a question. But listen, something very important happened as well. When they said, Jesus is calling for you, he only had two possessions in the world, the cup and the cloak. And he left them there for the multitudes. He left everything behind to be placed before Jesus. And Jesus asked him, what do you want me to do for you? It is quite a strange question, right? Jesus has in front of himself a man that is blind, that he knows, believes he is the true Messiah because he called him the son of David. And he still asks, what do you want me to do for you? Jesus really needs us to verbalize, very much like in a catharsis process, to put out loud what is truly your deepest need. Because at that time, maybe it wouldn't even be, I want my eyes to see. It could be something else. And you could think that your whole life, this is one thing that you want, but when you have the possibility of having it, you see yourself naming something else. And he did. He named something else because his answer has a double meaning. He said, that I may see. It's not for you to open my eyes, to cure my blindness, but that I may see. It's much more than just open the physical eyes. And Jesus healed him. And I can only imagine what could be the sensation of you seeing for the first time, and the person you see before you is Jesus, the face of Jesus. And from what we learn, even from Amelia Rodriguez as well, and other literature, from that moment on, Bartimaeus never left the side of Jesus. He followed Jesus everywhere. He stayed close to Jesus. And immediately, like when we said at the beginning, the thoughts of Jesus multiplying, impact the lives of people. While Jesus continued walking towards the center of the city, Jericho, and Bart following him, Bart would take the opportunity of telling everyone, look, I was that blind person and now I see. And he was already preaching and showing to everyone the wonders that the Messiah could do. Meanwhile, we have Zacchaeus, not knowing exactly what was happening at the gates of the city, but feeling that Jesus was approaching. And then he dressed himself with the humble cloak he had. He enveloped himself in it to try to hide, for people not to see him, not because he was embarrassed or anything, but because he knew that if people saw him, they would try to prevent him to get close to Jesus. And so he tried here and there, but the multitude was there, and he couldn't see behind all the people and the heads and children that were lifted on the shoulders of their parents. And there he was, and some people that could recognize him saying, look, the impure, look, the publican, look, the sinner, and try to push him away, while he was feeling each time more that Jesus was approaching. that Jesus was close. And at the same time that he was so anxious to look at Jesus, he was so afraid because to him, that was his last opportunity. If this man that they were saying was holy, if this man that they were saying would sit and dine with the sinners, would not see him, then his life was over. It was when he saw a sycamore tree, and he knew that tree because he would go by that tree every day and knew that was a strong tree, a sycamore tree, and even risking ridicule, shame, he was not worried about it. He climbed the tree in order for him to see Jesus. And then Jesus is approaching. And he stops beneath the tree. And he looks up and says, Zacchaeus, I think it's worth for us to stop a minute and to understand the weight of this call. How were the emotions running in Zacchaeus at this moment? Because he was thinking, Jesus know me? He didn't call me a publican, an impure, a sinner, but he called me by my name as a child of Abraham. The shock, the emotion. It was a long time since he heard someone pronounce saying his name. Sometimes we don't think about that, the importance of a single name. The importance of hearing the tone that this name is pronounced, that being seen. Divaldo would quite often talk to us about the invisible of the world. And let us include this category here. Yes, Zacchaeus had money, power, prestige, position, but he was invisible to the world. And not only Jesus called him by his name, but he said, come now quickly, because today I must stay at your house. Well, we can only imagine how Zacchaeus ran down from the tree, from his position, and went to his home to prepare everything that he could to receive Jesus in his home. A true friend that he has not had for so many years. But people are interesting, right? We people are interesting. Not 5 minutes ago, we were honoring Jesus, revering Jesus, saying, he is the Messiah. Look, he healed the blind man from birth. And 5 minutes later, he's talking to Zacchaeus and saying, I must stay at your home. And they say, nah, Jesus is not who he thinks or people think he is. How come he doesn't know who Zacchaeus is? How come he didn't reprimand Zacchaeus? And on top of everything, he gave attention to him and not to us. And Jesus went to Zacchaeus' home, and according to what we have, the reports from Spiritist literature, from the Gospels, hagiographic memory, everything, Jesus just stayed there for a while with people jumping, to look and close from the windows to see if they could see what was going on. What conversation were they having? And according to what we hear or read, Jesus basically he stayed quiet. He just looked at it. There was a soul-to-soul conversation. And it is said that at a certain point of this silence dialogue, and there were other people there as well, not only Jesus and Zacchaeus, people that were following Jesus, maybe even Bartimaeus. He climbed in a chair. I think he liked to climb, right? He climbed in the tree. Or he felt that in order for him to talk to Jesus, somehow he had to elevate himself. And he climbed in the chair and said, Lord, I give half of my goods to the poor. And if I have wronged anyone, I will restore 4 times what I took it. This was the law at the time. You see, if we have wronged, if I have taken 1 horse of yours, I had to give you back 4 horses. And that was the vocabulary that they would be saying. So, but the half that he was going to be giving to the poor, he was giving half of what he had to the poor. And it is said that at the same day when Jesus left, he would go to his stable where he used to work, and together with his assistants, he immediately provided the transference and the restitution for all the people. But Jesus says, this is when Jesus declares one phrase: today salvation has come to this house. I think that in many times we may identify with one or the other. Bart was blind of the eyes. Zach was blind of the heart. One was sitting in the roadside in misery. The other one was perched in a tree in curiosity. One was shouting Jesus' name, and the other was hearing Jesus speak his name. But both of them were found by Christ. because they were searching. Bart was longing for light, and Zacchaeus was longing for forgiveness. And how many times we are here longing for light? I don't know what to do with my life. I don't know which way to take. I don't know which decision, what is right, what is wrong necessarily. Since we are not perfect spirits, we don't know. We have our own measures, but this is not the measure of God, the law of God. Or I have erred so much, and I had so many times to make amends, to amend my way, but I'm still in a whirlwind that just keeps me sinking and falling each time more. Can I be forgiven and start anew? This is what this brief passage of Jesus that we know of, that, history has preserved to us, represents, and how actual they are in our lives. Sometimes we may be here thinking, I'm not worthy. Maybe I do not deserve certain things or help. And then help comes and we sabotage the help. We saw the effort that Zacchaeus made to be there among the multitude and risk being lynched and climb that tree. And for Bartimaeus was the same. When he started screaming for Jesus' name, people was jumping at him. We cannot do that. We have to have faith that mercy of God is for all of us. Emmanuel is one that constantly reminds us that Jesus responds to our sincere effort. Joanna de Angelis even say that the story of Bartimaeus represent our human consciousness awakening from centuries of moral blindness. And in terms of Zacchaeus, she says that it's like the eagle awakening to humility. And Jesus had this power of immediately making us connect with our human consciousness, with our ego, shifting the values of our lives. So, as we turn from Bartimaeus, blind, wounded, begging for life, sitting at the road of life, with nothing left but a cry, and sometimes we are surrounded by success, like Zacchaeus, and still starving spiritually, needing to hear our name again, our true name, the one that God whispers when we forget who we are, when we forget that we are children of God. So we too, at this moment, must throw off the cloak, climb the sycamore, and go when Jesus is coming. Bartimaeus was there when Jesus was crucified. He never left Jesus a second while Jesus was alive. And he continued being a faithful spreader of the good news when Jesus returned after the resurrection, the 40 days, but continue with us till this day. So let us be reminded that we are never alone. And if you are, we are truly preparing our souls, ourselves for Jesus to come, as impossible as it would be, we should remain in faith. And Bartimaeus, continue praying now every night because he could see or differentiate day from night, showing his gratitude to God that all those years heard him, his plea, his faith, his certainty that he was going to be healed. So may we too cry out, maybe we too descend from our pride, hear our name, and spoken the name of Jesus. And may we, like them, in this hustle bustle of life, in the Jericho that we inhabit, we may open the path and the way for Jesus to come and to take us together with him to Jerusalem, to shalom, to peace, to God. May God bless us.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jussara. It's very touching, the discussion about Bartimaeus and Zacchaeus, right? Wow. But anyways, let's come up with some before move on some notes on the upcoming events, and just want everybody to understand first of all that we have an amazing 20th US Spiritist Symposium. So register now. It is hosted by the US Spiritist Federation, and amazing. The event will take place on November 7th at the Hotel AC, Hotel Fort Lauderdale Airport in Dania Beach, Florida. And today, this year's theme is the Compass for Spiritual Progress. And you have the QR code there, register. You can take a look at more information, not only about the topic, but also individual talks in speakers, right? So go there. The second one is that we have the 19th Spiritist Conference of Georgia, and it's going to happen, I believe, just a month earlier in October, October 10th and 11th. This year's theme is the Spiritist View of Afflictions, and lectures will be in English and in Portuguese with simultaneous interpretation. And there is also discounted registration. Sorry, I'm tongue tied today. Discounted registration offered until August 31st. Visit spiritistconference.com and you get that, or using the QR code as well. We also invite all of you to follow us on social media channels to stay updated on upcoming events and activities. And of course, don't forget to visit the U.S. Spiritist Federation bookstores at spiritistbooks.us, and you find there a wide selection of Spiritist books, including exciting new releases. Whenever they come, they're there. So go there. And if you work with the Spiritist youth, or you're interested in education resources, be sure to explore the Family, Youth, and Children Spiritist Education, known as FIXI. They have a website at spiritismkids.us, and you can find amazing materials as well as ideas for youth educators. And finally, take a moment to check out Be My Hope app. It offers inspiring daily messages to uplift all of our spirits. It's available for free, and you can find it on both the App Store or Google Play. Now, let's go ahead and say thank you, Jussara, and let's look into your questions, your comments, and if you haven't sent yet, please do so. We have a few minutes to talk, Jussara. I'm just taken by the topic itself. So let's start. In a culture that often measures success by achievement and possessions, how can we avoid becoming spiritually blind while remaining fully engaged in the world? So, your friend Bart can tell us about this experience, right? Can we talk a little bit about it, because it's really something that all of us suffer, right? We are immersed in the material world, and we are given, and I'm saying this because we talked about this at a different site, in a different context, not so long ago, right, Jusana? So this is really interesting topic. So thank you for those who send that question to us.
Well, I do believe that we live in a world already that we have the option, right? I have the option of going one way or the other. Um, it's not that we do not know people that, are good and are more, let's say, live more under good moral and ethical values, but they are not happy. I mean, we know people that are happy doing that, and we know there is both ways. So I would say that we have to choose one and to stay in it. We stand by it.
Mhm.
The problem is, uh, since we are still in a period of transition ourselves, one day I wake up, um, Mother Teresa of Calcutta. The other day, I'm not going to give you the example. You choose the example yourself, right? You know. So and we keep on transitioning, and also being uh, suffering peer pressure, right? That there is a lot of peer pressure among us adults as well, and I think it's very hard. It's very hard, but to say no. But I need that. We normally say I need that. Wait, wishing or would like that is one thing. Needing
Mhm.
uh, um, is something else, right? I was remembering Mowgli.
Yes.
The extraordinary is too much, something like this.
Yes, yeah. And
Only
by the way, I was thinking, you said Marley, and I was thinking about Maslow and the
the
pyramid, right? It's
pyramids of need.
we often stay at the bottom, wishing that the bottom represents the top, and it does not. Yeah,
Even because and in this case we cannot even criticize.
yeah,
Say, oh, that
sure.
person is too spiritual, or that person is too material.
Yeah,
each one of us will be living according to what we think and how we are capable of. And there are people that are capable of living in sainthood, and we are not. And there are people that really do not have any consideration for others and just think about their own values. And in this case, of course, there is the opposites. But I would say choose what is in your best interest and stick by it.
And I would say, Jussara, if I may, from your talk today, this is exactly the tale, if you will, of what we're given here. Uh, if we judge for what we are not yet, we are not really replicating the model that Jesus brought to us. So it's really interesting because it's all about, in the case of Zacchaeus, he was so judged. Yes, he did something very material, his measure of success at the time, but he was so harshly criticized. And I love when you said nobody could even say his name or would not say his name. And yet Jesus not only did not judge, but he said his name and he welcomed him in all his imperfections. And that led to that the road to Damascus, if you will, if you can make that allusion.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Oh, that's a good another one. If Jesus walked through our own Jericho today, whom might he notice first and why? And what I'm thinking here, it's like, who are our Bartimaeus and Zacchaeus, right? Who are those marginalized?
I think that we had very
Mhm,
good example,
mhm,
um, and um, and it was a good inspiration really to put the two of them together, not because they
mhm,
were in the same trip, but because they have represents two different
mhm,
levels of society, right?
mhm.
Of course, Bartimaeus was blind.
Yeah.
He had no education. Okay, he would go to the synagogue. He would hear the scriptures, but he had no education. Right? He was poor. He was a beggar. He lived out of the charity of others.
Mhm,
Okay, so he was in one side of
mhm.
the scale, and Zacchaeus was in another side of the scale. Was a
Absolutely.
very knowledgeable man, and that's why he could, was very successful in his profession, being the boss of the region,
Mhm,
right? Um, but you see, in very wealth, it was not poorness or wealth, or it was not even the need,
mhm.
it was the preparedness
I love that. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
that they place themselves.
Yeah.
So you see, we can all go experience the same. Let's say we go to a concert, and for some we are going to attune with the music there, to whatever the lights, the colors, etc. They will leave the place and say, "Oh my God, that's so wonderful," and others will come back saying, "I wasted my time. This was bad. This was bad." So I think the more it's a matter of how is your soul,
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
prepared is your soul, and how truly, because it's the same example of Mary of Magdala. you
Yeah.
know she was very much like the Zacchaeus, right?
Yeah.
She went at night, hidden, for people not to see there, crossed the Sea of Galilee to go to the house of Peter where Jesus were,
Mhm,
uh, fearing not being received, especially by Peter. And also from what we hear in terms of their dialogue was very simple, very almost nothing. There is no need for us to talk before God. But God presented her, here is another alternative. And I think we all know that we have another way. We have an alternative. But we have to choose that. And I mean, if we have to change our ways, it's not going to be easy. It is not easy to change our ways.
Yeah.
And so there is this phrase from Jesus: do not give pearls to pigs. And unfortunately, there are many people that will not look like it, but it is because they will not benefit from the blessings that are bestowed to them, and others that we cannot not even imagine are the ones. So I think Jesus would come again, like he said, I come for the sinners,
Yeah.
or the sick. But the sinners and sick that are able to, do you have faith?
Yeah. 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 It's incredible. The mercy, the love in each encounter, and what we need, right? What is it that the moment that we are ready to
Mm.
do the next step? Oh my goodness. Let's see if we have another um, question. From a spiritist perspective, what role might previous experience and reincarnation play in understanding these two lives without judgment, or even reducing their lives to a sort of punishment? And I think you already mentioned to that. I don't know if you want to speak more about it, Jussara, right? Which is, they come from very different places, but what is the role of reincarnation in all of this?
Well, first of all, let's try to work in a different paradigm.
Mhm.
It's time for us spiritists to stop thinking that we are only suffering because we are punished.
Yes.
And that because of that, sometimes we embrace punishment because this is what I deserve because I was a naughty girl in a previous life. This is absolutely not true, okay? We are not here to suffer or to go in the direction of punishment and say, come to me because, it means that I'm prepared. It means that I have to endure all the pains and all of that. No. But there is a very simple mathematics. What I sow, I will reap. So there is no punishment. There is the reaping of what I have sown. Is there any interference from God and His spirits there? No. So if I'm going through difficult times, yes, I'm the ones that made my life, complicated my life, made my life hard.
Hmm.
So in the cases of trying to analyze, their situation here, um, there were many souls that were born at the time of Jesus. From what we hear from the spirits, I'm not going to be able to give any precise citation,
Hmm.
that were very good souls. They're accepted. Like I would dare to say that Bartimaeus were one of them that accepted being born as a blind man, a blind person, and lived for over 30 years as a blind person, so that when the time came, Jesus could heal him, which makes absolutely sense. Because if you think in a way, what was the behavior of Bartimaeus? They said he was a very, joyful person for what he had to endure. He
Hmm.
was a beggar. He had to live at the charity of others. He couldn't do anything with his life. He couldn't read a book or he couldn't get an education. But he had faith. He prayed every day, and at the deep side of his soul, he knew he was going to be healed.
Mhm.
When Jesus come and heal his physical body, that means what? His spirit was healed
Yes.
already.
Yes.
So I can remove a physical illness that do not have any more roots in the spiritual body, in your spirit. In the case of Zacchaeus,
Yeah.
it's a different case. It's a case of what, maybe he came to be tested again with, the gift of fortune,
Yeah.
of leading people. And he was still too, the ego was still talking too much.
Mhm.
But he said before reincarnating, I want to do better in this time. But he didn't. He was not doing that. But his conscience was constantly calling his attention. Listen, this is not right. You lead an empty life. Resort to God. Have these conversations with God. So here, it's not that he was ridden from being a miser, to say,
Mhm.
but he was giving a new opportunity,
Yeah.
and he took. And from now on, he really can amend this, the spiritual deficiency, the personality trait that it is to, to amass too much, to, to do those things. So he was giving a new opportunity. But then again, the punishment, we set our own bed.
Yes.
This is the thing. So let us stop blaming and saying, I mean, why Spiritism teaches us not to rebel? Because in fact, it is teaching you, as we teach a child, to become responsible for an action. You see, this is what happens when you act this way. There are other ways you can act, and the results are going to be much better for you. Now you choose.
Yeah. And as an example, we can see that in larger families, right, where a certain behavior leads to a certain types of personality traits and others not. And it's just very interesting. This is in one generation. Can you imagine with our, immortal spiritual path that we have and how it leads to that? But just that we have time for one more question before we close. So I just want to say, uh, thus far, thank you. Thank you for all your insights. So the last question for today is, how can Spiritist centers help people move from the Jericho of material preoccupation toward the Jerusalem of spiritual consciousness? And I could imagine, I live in the US, right? It is a first world, part of first world. It is a society that is characteristically materialistic, individualistic. And I would say today, that's my Jericho, right? And as immersed in this Jericho, we are mostly embedded in those material preoccupation. How do we leave to that quote unquote Jerusalem?
Um, Another thing that I wanted to say about, misunderstandings in relation to us is spiritists.
Mhm.
Sometimes people say, "Oh, you guys, spiritists, you people, you read too much, you study too much. I'm too old to study and this and that." And so, I think that the right answer to this question is read, study,
Mhm.
belong to a study group. Okay, we have so many today virtuals and presence in so many different spiritist centers throughout the US and the world. So, because if we do not understand um, why, uh, we have to do something, we will not find the way to do it. I remember, in my ignorance, okay, I always wanted, it's not for this lifetime, maybe next one, to learn how to play the piano,
Uh-huh.
and didn't have the chance. But had other incredible things. So no regrets, but that was one thing. And I thought it was interesting because, people would say, oh, it's very tiring and you have to dedicate a lot. You have to practice at least, I don't know how many hours, because your hands have the dexterity, the exercise in order to perform. And I never thought about it. But to me, to sit and play the piano was only about me knowing the music and the notes of the piano. And that's it. Right? I mean, that's what it seems to be required. Not
Uh-huh.
hours and hours of exercising so that when it comes for me to really play the whole partiture of that music, I'm not going
Mm.
to have, problems with my hands and pain and this and that. So the knowledge here is this. Now I understand. So because now I understand, now if I really wanted to play the piano, I know I have to do the exercise,
Yes.
right? Here is the same. If we do not go, if at least get the basic knowledge, because it's kind of new for us to, hey, you are a mortal spirit. Hey, you have a mission to perform.
Yes.
Hey, you are supposed to be very good friends or have more patience and tolerance towards your family. That's why they are your family, not mine. All of those things we start, the puzzle starts to be composed. And now you see clearly.
Yeah.
And this is when you get the motivation to say, you know what? Really, I need to do something else. I need to do something different. So now this is what the Spiritist Center can provide. It can be the roadmap to you.
I
It
love
gives
that.
you
Yeah.
guidelines.
Yeah.
But then again, it is up to you to do or not. You go there, you stop and say, what is the best way? Like, today we have ways, right? GPS. What is the
Uh-huh.
best way to go to, from here to Nashville? Okay. But then I'll say, the GPS knows nothing. I'll take my road.
Uh-huh.
Okay. You can take the road you want to, but you will be able to make a comparison. When the GPS showed you that you would be there, let's say in 24 hours after 1,000 miles, you arrived there in 35 hours. 1,400 miles later, you suffered unnecessary aggravation in your trip
And
because
delays, right? And delays and no judgment from the GPS.
that.
It's your choice. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, just for us to have an idea, sometimes we do know better than the GPS. Okay. But, it's just an idea, right? That is still we are in command. We have been hearing that from many different sources,
Mhm.
religious, institutional, uh, philosophies, spiritism. What is the best path for us to go through in life? But we've been taking detours and complicating our lives. So going to the Spiritist Center will prevent us. Oh, I was in need to be reminded that I'm thinking I'm taking a lot of wrong turns
Yes.
during
Yes.
in my
Yeah.
journey,
Yeah.
unnecessary wrong turns.
Mhm. I love it. One more thing as we're about to close here today, Jussara, is and I'm a project manager, right? So you use the word go to the Spiritist Center to create the roadmap. And for those of you who are not project managers, you create the roadmap first, and then you decide how you're going to sequence, how you're going to schedule, how you're going to get to the end of your roadmap. But it's all your choice. You can do many different ways. And I love that you'd start with that roadmap. This is what I want to get there. And a spiritual center can be a really good opportunity in place to do that, virtually or in person, right? But anyways, wonderful, wonderful talks, Josada. I really, really appreciate you. I am deeply touched, and I just want to say for all of you, because it is time to say goodbye. Thank you. Thank you for being here. For those of you who join us either today or in the future that follow us, thank you for being a regular to the Spiritism Talk series. Your continued engagement is really appreciated. But as you can see in the screen, it is also important for you to know that next Saturday there is more. Saturday, 11 a.m. U.S. Standard Time, Eastern Standard Time, sorry. Peter Roman will be with us, and he'll be exploring the topic lifting the invisible weight. And we look forward to having all of you with us again. But back to you, Josada. Before we close, could you please share your final remarks, if you have any, or lead us into a closing prayer?
Sure, we can do the prayer. A very short one. Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on us.